We exist at a time of the pro forma. Pro forma, an action undertaken as a mere gesture which satisfies the minimum requirements. We also mercifully exist, and I think not coincidentally exist, at a moment in our art form when the resistance against such calculated emptiness has manifested itself in the demanding, magnanimous, and comprehensive work of the three poets we are honored to welcome to Harvard tonight. In their poems, and also, crucially, I should say, in the dialogues and exchanges that extend from them, the, quote, performance of becoming human acts as a kind of literal counterintelligence to the pro forma of becoming inhuman. Of course, to make matters complicated, the pro forma and form and performance live side by side. Poetry's task, as Ishion Hutchinson asserted in a recent interview, is that of, quote, troubling the conscience of the neighbor, especially when that neighbor is consciously or unconsciously performing the inhuman. I recently snuck into a class here at Harvard which focuses on agnotology, the illuminating study of culturally induced ignorance, the study of how knowledge is kept from people strategically by the state and by corporate and lobbying interests, or by a particular gender, race, or ideology that is in power. Like pioneering agnotologists, these three poets document and defy the black holes of suppressed information and stories. They suffuse and fill what Aracelis Girmay calls the Black Marias, the very spaces of once declared emptiness in the universe, with undeniable narratives, with graphic graphemes. They, as in the case of Ishion Hutchinson, replace a sometimes predominant and quelling monotone with a metrical, mnemonic, maximalist music that unmutes, unmasks, and dismantles history. In Daniel Borzutsky's latest book, the narrator is baited with the question, "You love to write about this, don't you?" To which the narrator replies, "I am paid by the word for my transcriptions." If this were a pro forma exchange, the poet-narrator has just fulfilled the minimum requirements and answered in a Borzutskian fashion. But listen again to that exchange. Attend to that performance. I am paid by the word for my transcriptions. This canny assertion, and there are so many of them in Borzutsky's work, unsettles the economy of the conversation. The word itself rewards and repays, metaphysically, if not remuneratively, the act of the poet's transcription. In some ways, it occurs to me that I invited these three radically different poets here tonight because each manifests a commitment to such uncompromising transcription, to the carrying and transposing of codes and messages, testimony and musics from one context to the next, from one culture to the next, and to never detach themselves from the substance and implications of what they carry. Girmay's description of the humble but formidable fly might well be transposed upon the mission and methods of poetry itself, as she so honorably practices it. It, she says of the fly, cannot carry the message without itself being touched. It carries the history of the wound, disobeying the locks on doors and screens. The flies, they are the honest, who know their history and take it everywhere. We are in the presence of three poets tonight who are the honest and who testify to the everywhereness of the wound and in defiance of those forces that would seek to divide us, to our shared and undiminished humanity. Please welcome Daniel Borzutsky, Aracelis Girmay, and Ishion Hutchinson, who will read, or should I say perform, in that order. Daniel.
Lake Michigan, scene 15. They beat me, even though I did nothing. I don't know what day it was, but they beat me on the beach. They beat me with iron paws. The mayor ordered the police superintendent to beat me. The police superintendent ordered an officer to beat me. The officer ordered his dogs to attack me. Then someone beat me with iron paws. Then someone kicked me with iron boots. Then someone shot me. Then someone buried me. Then in the sand. Then someone scooped me out of the sand and dumped me somewhere. And I was dead. But I could feel the sand on my body. I could feel the sand filling my mouth. I could feel the sand in my eyes. There was an earthquake in my eyes. There was a tornado in my mouth. But after the storm passed, it was peaceful, and I was dead. And they beat me, even though I did nothing. They said I was illegal. They said I was an immigrant. They said I was an illegal immigrant who roamed the streets in a gang. They said I raped people. They said I killed people. They said I smuggled drugs in my gastrointestinal tract. They said I didn't speak the right language. They said my boss exploited me and I tried to kill him. They said my boss treated me well and I tried to kill him. They said my heart was dark. They said I peddled in blood. They said this was only war and that I had the audacity to think my body could resist the state. Let death come quickly. Let death be easy. But I did not know how long it would take. I did not know I would be under the sand forever. I did not know that in Chicago the bodies do not die when they have been strangled or riddled with bullets. A journalist asked the mayor why they killed us. I'm not responsible, said the mayor. There will be an inquest, said the mayor. We will bring the perpetrators to justice, said the mayor. He was wearing a slim-fitting suit and he looked handsome as the hurricane entered his mouth. He was wearing a slim-fitting suit and he looked handsome as he pretended he did not live in a city of cadavers and rotten carcasses. He had gel in his hair and his shoes were nicely polished, and he said there will be an inquest when what he meant was that there will be an inquisition. I died and I died again, and a voice said something about hope, and another voice said, you pay a big price for hope. And I dragged myself around the sand, and I tried to make it to the water because I thought the water might carry me away, but each time I took a step closer to the water moved further from my body, and there were faces in the water, and they were calling to me, and I was trying to get to the water. It's what you do when you are dead. But every time I took a step towards the water drew further away, and the faces in the water were murmuring, and their murmurs grew louder and louder as I moved nearer and further, and it was only war, a voice said, as he photographed my dead body on the sand. And I was dead, though I was breathing, when I finally made it to the water, and in the water there was another war going on in the waves, and it was only the beginning of the war that would kill me again and again. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Christina, for that introduction. I feel very, very lucky. I feel very lucky in general these days, given, I don't know, state of the world, but I feel especially lucky to be reading with in front of all of you and with Aracelis and Ishion. So I'm going from new to old. So I'm working on a book called Lake Michigan, which takes place on a kind of invented prison camp on the shores of Lake Michigan that has some relationship to a real prison setting in Chicago. So there's sort of a variety of different things happening in the prison, one of which is a kind of division of prisoners according to race. So I'll read a few scenes from there, and then I'll read from the performance of Becoming Human, and then perhaps from an older book. Lake Michigan, scene 16. They put paint on my eyes. They put mud on my eyes. They put sludge on my eyes. They asked me to look in a mirror. They said, this is your face. They said, you have been dead now for 3 days. They said, you have been missing now for 3 days. They asked me what I did with my mind. They asked me what I did with my papers. They asked me when I saw my parents. They asked me what I did with my bank card. They asked me what I did with my hands. I told them my hands are broken. I told them I don't remember my bank card. I told them about an investigator who came to my office. He worked for the city, and his title was Investigator Number 41. He asked me what I did on the internet. He measured my arms. He measured my legs. He asked me who I spoke to on my cell phone. He asked me who I sent messages to. He asked me if my documents had been filed according to regulation and policy. He looked inside my mouth with a flashlight. He tested my reflexes. He asked me to stand still, perfectly still, and to keep my balance. I could not keep my balance, and he told me he expected me to do better. He asked me why I couldn't keep my balance. He hit me when I tried to keep my balance. He spat on me when I fell to the floor. He kicked me when I fell to the floor. floor. He asked me to stand up, to stand perfectly still, and to try to keep my balance. He punched me in the stomach, and I fell to the floor, and the other workers in the office heard me scream, but they could not help me, and they were also beaten. He told me I helped an illegal human being and that this made me illegal. He told me I helped an illegal human being find food and as a result I would not be able to eat. He told me I helped an illegal human being drink water and as a result I would not be able to drink water. We got into a van and he took me to the prison on the shores of Lake Michigan and we went into an office and he asked me to sign some papers. I signed nothing and they beat me and locked me in a closet. He took my shirt and pants and locked the door. I sat on the cold ground. I fell asleep. Maybe I died. I woke up and there was a pipe lying next to me. I woke up and there was blood coming out of my mouth. I woke up and I was dead and there was a mountain in the middle of the beach and they took me there. I woke up and I was dead and they left me at the foot of the mountain. I saw a picture of the city in a mirror. I saw giant birds committing suicide. I saw species of children struck with a terrible plague. They could not walk. They could not talk. They crawled and moaned. I asked for some money and they gave me a map. I asked for some water and they gave me a few coins. I asked for my family and they showed me a picture of the mayor. I asked for an attorney and they beat me. I crawled up the mountain and it started to burn. I walked into the flames and I woke up and someone played notes from a ram's horn. I walked out of the flames and fell asleep and I heard my mother's voice. They poured gasoline on me and I recited some numbers in my head. I tasted salt in my mouth. I tasted gasoline in my mouth. I heard the children of Chicago crying and they were buried under the mountain. I heard the mayor say that our city was a place of sanctuary. I heard the mayor say that our city was a shelter for refugees. I saw the police shoot an innocent boy 16 times and I heard the mayor make a promise. Your body will return, he said. Your body will be a dream that spreads slowly across the beach, he said. Your body will be a playground and the children will crawl all over you. I felt my hands burn. I felt my neck burn. I felt my fingers burn. I felt my lips burn. I felt my lungs burn. I felt my elbows burn. I felt my nose burn. My hair was burning and I asked if I could see my sister. They asked me what she looked like, and I described her perfectly, and they said nothing. I heard them drill into the mountain, and it felt like they were drilling into my body. They drilled a hole into the mountain, and the children crawled into it, and they sang a song to the city about how much they loved it. And the song grew softer and softer, and the children sung it forever. And it was only war, said a body in uniform. It was only the beginning of war. And I'll read one more piece. This is the last piece from that series. Lake Michigan, scene 19. The beaches are filled with cages, and the cages are filled with bodies, and the bodies are filled with burdens, and the burdens consume the bodies, and the bodies do not know to whom they owe their life. I drop my body on the sand, and someone tells me to pick it up. I drop to the sand to pick up my body, and someone tells me to steal more hair, to steal more flesh, to steal more bones, to steal more fingers. I tell them I cannot risk contaminating the data. I tell them that if I steal more hair, then the data will not be clean. I tell them I cannot touch my own body out of fear of contaminating the data. I have a virus, I say. I am contagious, I say. No salt in my body, no heat in my blood. The sand is dying slowly. It turns into a wall, and in the wall there is a nook, and in the nook there is light, and in light there is God, and in God there is nothing, and in nothing there is hope. And in hope there is abandonment, and in abandonment there is wound, and in wound there is nation, and in nation there are bones, and in bones there is time, and in time there is light, and in light there are numbers, and in numbers there are codes, and in the codes there are mountains, and in the mountains there are bodies searching for bones, and in the mountains there are tunnels, and in the tunnels there is so much festering garbage. The men in uniform take the garbage away, but they have a hard time distinguishing the garbage from the people, so they scoop it all up and carry us into the next morning. And in the next morning there is a confession. I have put my burdens in the wrong body. I have framed my burdens in the wrong nation. I have staked my burdens to the wrong language. I need medicine to sleep. I need medicine to stop the shrieking in my ears. I need medicine to make the Chicago corpses turn into hydrangeas. I need medicine to make the immigrants turn into butterflies. I need an injection to make the bureaucrats turn into terrorists. It is raining again on Lake Michigan. Some say it is raining bodies, but really it is raining trash. The trash they bomb us with explodes when it lands near our bodies, and our bodies are tornadoes. Did you hear the one about the frog they dumped into the boiling water? Where is the frog? The children scream. Where is our beautiful frog? And the owners of the frog, who are the owners of the children, are worried about the frog, but not so worried that they take it out of the boiling water. And the joke turns into a mystery novel about how God keeps his hands from shaking when he is about to destroy the universe. I need my burdens, sing the bodies on the beach. I fight for my burdens, scream the bodies on the beach. I know the blankness of my burdens is a battle for love and country. I know the blankness of my burdens is a coda to the death of the city. I don't know why I can't see the moon anymore. I can't see the stars or the sky anymore. I don't even bother to look up. So I will read a few pieces from the performance of Becoming Human, starting with this is called The Devouring Economy of Nature. Let's begin at the end, she says. The best way to end a sentence is with the word blank. It is midnight, and I am lonely, and your blank is the blank of my blank. He ran through the party thrown to celebrate the hanging of the other body. He trampled cold chicken and biscuits, or he ran through the silhouettes of the hanging bodies, or he possessed the fortitude needed to refuse to begin another act of language. I refuse to write the middle of the story. There is water everywhere. There is a flood on my street, and I am sleeping in a body that is much too big for my bed. In fact, I am sleeping in a bed that is much too big for my house. The flood has changed the proportions, house to bed to body, or at least my perception of the proportions. Did you hear the one about the immigrant laborer who was run over by the tractor? In his pocket was a photograph of his cousin Ava, a 13-year-old in a refugee camp in another country. As the tractor ran him over, he keeps shouting to his fellow workers, "Please, somebody marry Ava. Somebody marry Ava." And to mourn the death of the mutilated workers, the children sang a song called Other People's Bodies. They sang it to the tune of a current popular song. There was a dance routine that involved hand motions and little hops and the thrusting of booties in and out. And as the song developed, the progression of data became increasingly relevant. For the children, as the children sang, they slowly began to understand that they would never see their parents again, that they had been taken from their homes and tossed in the pools in order to fulfill the required data specifications outlined by the city, the state, and the country. Or a barbarian and an economist walk into a bar. The barbarian says, "I dreamt we were in a swimming pool and you were swimming towards me. I was sitting on the wall, and when you got to the wall dissolved into the water, and the pool stretched out endlessly, and there were hundreds of children swimming in the pool, and they were looking for their parents. There were men in orange wetsuits painting lines throughout the water, over the water really, and the lines were different colors, and they stuck to the surface of the water, and we understood that certain colors meant certain things. And you picked up a drowning child and said, 'Here is a small piece of data. I won't tell you what this data means in relation to the other data that will determine the relationship between your desire to eat the children and the future prosperity of the nation.' The economist orders 2 martinis and says to the barbarian, 'There is something frozen here. I see you standing in front of the pool, and I know that the you who is standing here is the you who has uttered this sentence so many times before. When you spit out the sentence, they will say that it did not come from my mouth, that it came from the mouth of the person who is performing this act of being you.' In other words, linguistic theory opens the door to the possibility that we are not ethically responsible for our actions. And the barbarian says, even if money doesn't exist, there will always be an audience for economists. And they take the water from the river and put it in the back of several trucks. And from the dried up river, there emerges a country. And in the country, there are children who have been invented by people who made money in things that don't actually exist. And they don't say, 'Why are you taking the water from the river?' And they don't think, 'Why are you shaving the fur from the bodies of our dogs?' The children sit on the sofa, placed perfectly in a picturesque location on the river. The dogs are arranged so that they rest in front of the sofa. The photographer asks the children to smile so that the rest of the world can see how well we treat the displaced people. 'Do you want to see what you look like?' the photographer says to the children. The children look at their images without recognition, stuck as they are in the fantasy life of the economists. And the barbarian says, 'Do we really need these kids? Do I really need this job?' 3 dogs guard the 2 children. I will write their story, but I will not understand it. The doctor says, 'Yes. In Illinois, we love a war between states across borders, both real and imagined.' Or, did you hear the one about the boy who was thrown into the fire? His charred meat was hacked up with a cleaver and fed to dogs while his parents watched from a cage. The economist, formerly of the working class, only got married so that he could demonstrate that it was possible for a, quote, kid like me to move into high society. According to the data, it is impossible for rich people to be friends with poor people. This, according to the data, is true in all societies. I'll read two more pieces. Dream Song number 17. They took my body to the forest. They asked me to climb a ladder. I did not want to climb a ladder, but they forced me to climb the ladder. If you don't climb the ladder, we will bury you in the mud. I had to decide, should I die by hanging or by burial? I climbed the ladder, and they wrapped a belt around the thick limb of a tree. When I could no longer breathe, they tossed me into a stream, and I floated to the edge of the village where someone prayed for my soul. It is like this in a lullaby for the end of the world. The options for the end are endless, but this is not really a lullaby for the end of the world. It's about the beginning, what happens when we start to see in the daylight, the way the light shines on the ants and worms and parasites, loving our bodies. It's about the swarm of dogs gnawing our skin and bones. Do you know what it's like when a ghost licks your intestines? To avoid the hole, the children must sing sweetly, softly. To avoid the hole, they must fill their songs with love. And I'll conclude with one piece. This is the title piece from In the Murmurs of the Rotten Carcass Economy, which begins with a line from Marguerite Duras, who says, "It's true, there is the innocence of life." 1. I can't actually write the question. There are too many things that get in my way. There are bodies sticking together in broken ways. There are bodies that make up sentences, and I'm going to have to delete the question, but now I'm ashamed of it because it refers to the relationship between X concept in the fake world and Z thing in the real world, and I'm afraid of the bodies and how they are lining them up in the compounds, afraid of the bodies that make sentences, afraid of the bodies and how they are like sentences that begin with conjunctions. I love to begin sentences with conjunctions. I love it when they line the bodies up in holes or in stadiums, and they form the bodies into words and sentences. There are marching bands and ghosts, and then there are bodies with the authority to remove skin. But please don't use the word shed. It doesn't quite encapsulate the experience I am talking about. Think of Paris and the lights over the Seine on Christmas Eve, about the muddy Mapocho River in winter. There is hardly any water in it. Think of Sissy Spacek and Jack Lemmon and the midget who says, "Hay otro," as he points to another body floating down the river. End stop. Period. The authoritative bodies had ideas about fingernails. Could they be used as commas? They hated semicolons. They didn't believe in adjectives. All of the people I love are in love with the absence of adjectives. 2. I'm curious about aesthetics and revolution and whether or not aesthetics can only exist in the absence of revolution, but it's disgusting to pose such questions while driving in a heated Japanese car through the grit of a shit snow night in a crumbling city in the Midwestern United States, or on a bus tour of a city in the island to the south where on the sidewalk children sit eating cardboard sandwiches drizzled with soy sauce from plastic packets, and a voice on the loudspeaker says, "To your left you will see an X-type person. We don't have many X-type people in our city. We consider it good luck to see an X-type person." And it was just our lucky day because there, munching on a cardboard sandwich drizzled with soy sauce, was an X-type person announcing the beginning of a movement away from one thing and towards another thing. It is impossible to know what these things are, but I am certain there is an aesthetics of crumbling buildings, and in the murmurs of the rotten carcass economy, I hear something I will mention to you when the words have taken over my mouth. Writing says Duras, is the pace of the written word passing through your body. There is a little plastic packet of soy sauce in a cardboard sandwich being eaten by a little person, and then there is a data chip I would like to insert into your skin, dear reader, dear data body, and I would like the data chip to cause things to grow inside of you. I am in love with the little flowers growing inside of you. Inside of you is the smallest woman inside in the entire world. Inside of you is a disgusting feeling, a sensation like that when you touch the impossible spot, the one that no one ever touches. If there weren't things like this, writing would never take place. And by things, I mean anonymous dead bodies on the ground in anonymous sleepy villages. I slept in a fancy hotel across the street from an enormous hole where the skin and the hair of the fallen bodies were drilled into by bulldozers. This thing called love. Data body, my love. I would not be opposed to having my pants ripped into shreds if I knew they could keep the fire going a bit longer. I would not be opposed to having my walls knocked down if the wood in the walls could keep the fire going a bit longer. I would not be opposed to depositing your cardboard sandwich into the flames if I thought it could keep us warm for just another minute longer. Breath, glue, word, brick, wood, nail, gum, something that is held together evolves into a structure that cannot be contained by soldiers or language or ideas. Think of a bowl of pistachio gelato at the top of the Spanish Steps. Think of a battle between a figurative body and a literal body, in which there is no chance the literal body will ever win. Think of a little person as she squats on the ground of a foreclosed property. History is asserting itself into her mouth and veins. There is nothing we can do about the fact that the ceiling will destroy her soft and crumbly body. 6. It's calm here now. The main horror is the idea, the word, the body. There is the sentence and there is the ongoing nightmare of a continuously deteriorating nation. In conclusion, there is the flood and the bodies it washes to shore. There are the bags of money and the moment they are hurled from the window. There are the banks and there are the explosions. There are the buildings and the aesthetics of the crumble. There are the cities and there are the machines that no longer collect their feces. There are the rivers and there are the dead birds that occupy them. There are the beaches and the broken cities beneath them. There are the animal cages and there are citizens who sit in them. There's the poem and there is the very last word spoken by the body that threw itself in front of a tank. There is the highway and the man who sets himself aflame on the side of it. There's the church and the bodies that frame it. There, in the space after the period and between the first word of the sentence of the new era. Here, in the space after the comma and the first breath taken in the new era. Here, in the sheets of the hospitalized refugees in the state on the other side of the river. After, the after, the after, the after. There are words, and there is nothing to say about them. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Can you hear me okay? It's an honor, it's a gift to get to be here with you all and to get to read with Daniel and Ishion, and special thanks to Christina and Mary. I'm going to read a poem that I wrote 14 years ago or so that I'd kind of stopped sharing, and then it's resurfaced and felt differently urgent. It's called For Stephanie Lora, 3rd grade, who made me a card. And I just want to spell what was inside of the card for you. LOISFOERIBARI. So clearly, you know what that means. Elephant on an orange line underneath a yellow circle, meaning sun. 6 green vertical lines with color all from the top, meaning flowers. The first time I peel back the 5 squares of Scotch tape, unfold the crooked crease fold of art class paper, I am in my living room. It is June. Inside of the card, there is one long word and then Estefani's name. Los Ruriri, Estefani Lora. Los Ruriri? Los Ruiori, the scientific Latinate way of saying hibiscus, Los Ruiori, a direction as in, are you going north, south, east, west, Los Ruiori? I try over and over to read the word out loud. Los Ruiori, Lois Ruiori, Los Ruiori, Los Ruiori. What is this word? I imagine using it in sentences like, man, I have to go back to the house. I forgot my Los Ruiori. Or, there's nothing better than rain, hot rain, open windows with music, and a tall glass of Los Ruiori. Or, how are we getting to Pittsburgh? Should we drive or take the Los Ruiori? I have lived 4 minutes with this word, not knowing what it means. It is the end of the year. I consider writing my student, Estefany Lora, a letter that goes, to the brilliant Estefany Lora. Hola, querida, I hope that you are well. I've just opened the card that you made me, and it is beautiful. I really love the way you filled the sky with birds. I believe that you are chula, chulita, and superfly. Yes, the card is beautiful. I only have one question for you. What does the word Los Ruiori mean? I try the word again. Los Ruiori, Los Ruiori, Los Ruiori. I try the word in Spanish, Los Feribari, Los Feribari, and then slowly Lo isfo eri bari. Lo isfo eri bari. Love is for everybody, love is for everybody, love, love, love everybody, love everybody, love is love, everybody is love, love, love for everybody, for love is everybody, love is for everybody, love, love, love for body, love body, body is body, everybody is every love, for every love is love. For love, everybody, love, love. Love, love for everybody. Love is for everybody. Shifting and not shifting gears, both. It's estimated that over 20,000 people have died at sea, making the journey from North Africa to Europe in the past 2 decades. On October 3rd, 2013, it's estimated that 300 people died at sea off the coast of Lampedusa, Italy. Those on board the boat that sank were nearly all Eritrean. This cycle of poems focuses on Eritrean history, as this is a history I am somewhat familiar with as someone of its diaspora, but of course the history of people searching for political asylum and opportunity both is much larger than Eritrean history alone. I'm going to read a few poems from this really long cycle. And I just want to say a couple things. One is that the name Luam will come up, and there are these characters called the Luams who are kind of doppelgangers of one another. And so I'll say where they are and what their names are when and if they do come up. But this poem is called Prayer and Letter to the Dead. Beloveds, beneath the surface of your last place, the tiny, oblivious fishes form wreaths above the sea grasses and their long reach. Some mornings in my own city far away, I run to greet you come to me as sea, and carry myself out into your long, dark time, like a child meeting its older cousins. I touch your teeth and give you the single word of my body. I am a woman again at the side of Aboy Haile's bed, Aboy who is 96. He is brushing my acacia hair. He is holding my arm. He says, moving his hand to mean all around us, that this is my home. He means Adisogdo, but he also means the world. Though I think in America that I am there and he is here, that we are different or far. Really, we are each other. My bones are your bones, he says. His teeth are my teeth, and my smiling is his smiling. He holds my arm tight, until it is a stone, a bone. He smooths my hair with force. I am a horse, the long dark skin of the water, the talking aboy of the water, the brushing back my acacia hair, washing my face. When we are done, I cross the sea back into air and return to the traffic of the streets I know. I am marked by the dead, your sea letters of salt and weeping. Now I am ready to lay myself down on the earth, to listen to the instructions for how to talk of love and land, to sing of home in the horrible years, and to fill my language like the stars do, with the light anyway of a future tense. This is Luam to the dead, and this Luam is in a small town in Italy, Umbertide. The news announces your last place, a picture of rocks and sand. Having slipped through the seam of one realm into another, through into the lost, where hours no longer touch you, we wait and wait. A figure catches in the street, your color, your height, the rareness of both in this town. But you are the nothing now except what history carries in its dog teeth, life, my luxury, my room alone at the hill's green foot, my view of racket and deer. At night I run the shower to warm me. The water, it comes suddenly, cousin, my hand through you. This is called Luang Asylum, and it imagines, it takes place in the afterworld sea, and it is imagining that this Luang is the sister of Abram Petrovich Ganabal, who was the great-grandfather of the poet Alexander Pushkin, and he's claimed by many places, one of them being Eritrea. He was born at the end of the 17th century in a village. The people who say that he was from Eritrea say that he's from Lagon in Eritrea, and was kidnapped at the age of 7, it's told, and sold into slavery in Constantinople, and then he's considered like the darling of Peter the Great eventually, and other people say he's from Cameroon. But anyways, long story short, there's a statue of him now, of Alexander Pushkin now, in Asmara, the capital of Eritrea. And one of the stories is that his sister either followed him when he was kidnapped and died at sea trying to follow the boat, or that she was captured too and jumped into the sea trying to separate. So she's imagined in many ways, and this poem imagines her in the afterworld sea with other young girls. And you'll hear at the end, I'm playing with the words my in Tigrinya and my, my in English. There was a water song that we sang when we were going to fetch river from the river. It was filled with water sounds and pebbles. Here in the after wind with the other girls, we trade words like special things. One girl tells me Mai was her sister's name, the word for flower. She has been saving this one for a special trade. I understand and am quiet a while, respecting, then give her my word, Mai, for water. And another girl tells me Mai is mother in her language, and another says it meant to her what belongs to me. Then belonging suddenly is a strange word, or a way of feeling like to be longing for. And you, brother, are the only one I think of to finish that thought, to be longing for my brother, my brother. I'm going to read 2 more poems. I was honored to have this poem published under the editorship of Chloe Garcia-Roberts, who's here. This is the first section of The Black Maria, after Neil deGrasse Tyson, Black astrophysicist and director of the Hayden Planetarium, born in 1958, New York City. In his youth, he was confronted by police on more than one occasion when he was on his way to study stars. Body of space, body of dark, body of light. The Skyview Apartments, circa 1973. A boy is kneeling on the rooftop. A boy who, it is important to mention here, his skin is brown, prepares his telescope, the weights and rods, to better see the moon. His neighbor, it is important to mention here that she is white, calls the police because she suspects the brown boy of something. She does not know what at first, then turns with her looking his telescope into a gun, his duffel into a bag of objects thieved from the neighbors' houses, maybe even hers. And the police, it is important to mention that statistically they are also white, arrived to find the boy, who has been turned by now into the suspect, on the roof with a long black lens, which is, in the neighbor's mind, a weapon. And depending on who you are, reading this, listening to this, you know that the boy is in grave danger. And you might have known somewhere quiet in your gut. You might have worried for him in the white space between lines 5 and 6, or maybe even earlier. And you might be holding your breath for him right now because you know this story. It's a true story, though miraculously in this version of the story anyway. The boy on the roof of the Skyview lives to tell the police that he is studying the night and moon, and lives long enough to offer them, the cops, a view through his telescope's long black eye, which, if I am spelling it out anyway, is the instrument he borrowed and the beautiful trouble he went through, lugging it up to the roof to better see the leopard body of space speckled with stars and the moon far off, much farther than, since I am spelling the thing out, the distance between the white neighbor who cannot see the boy, who is her neighbor, who in fact is much nearer to her than to the moon, the boy who wants to understand the large and gloriously unhuman mysteries of the galaxy, the boy who, despite America, has not been killed by the murderous jury of his neighbor's imagination and wound this poem, wants only the moon in its heart, and the boy on the roof, this boy on the roof of this poem with a moon in his heart. Inside my own body, as I write this poem, my body is making a boy, even as the radio calls out the Missouri coroner's news, the Ohio coroner's news 2015. My boy will nod for his milk and close his mouth around the black eye of my nipple. We will survive. How did it happen? The boy, the cops, my body in this poem, my milk pulling down into droplets of light as the baby drinks and drinks them down into the body that is his own. See it, splayed and sighing as a star in my arms. Maybe he will be the boy who studies stars. Maybe he will be, say it, the boy on the coroner's table, splayed and spangled by an officer's lead, as if he too weren't made of a trillion glorious cells and sentences trying to last. Leadless, remember, the body's beginning, splintered with breaths turned by time into at least this song. This moment made, and the mackerel soul caught flashing inside the brief moment of the body's net, then whoosh, back into the sea of space. The poem dreams of bodies always leadless, bearing only things ordinary as water and light. And this is the last section of that long poem. How did it happen? The boy, the cops, my body in this poem. The body bearing something ordinary as light opens, as in a room somewhere, the friend opens, in poppy, in flame, burns and bears the child out. When I did, it was the hours and hours of breaking, the bucking of it all, the push and head not moving, not an inch until when he flew from me, it was the night who came flying through me with all its hair, the immense terror of his face and noise. I heard the stranger and my brain without looking vowed a love him vow. His struggling merely to be split me down with the axe to two, how true, the thinness of our hovering between the realms of here, not here, the fight first to open, then to breathe, and then to close, each of us entering the world and entering the world like this, soft, unlikely, then the idiosyncratic minds and verbs. Beloveds, making your ways to and away from us always across the centuries, inside the vastness of the galaxy, how improbable it is that this iteration of you or me might come to be at all. Body of fear, body of laughing, and even last, a second. This fact should make us fall all to our knees with awe, the beauty of it against these odds, the stacks and stacks of near misses and slimmest chances that birthed one ancestor into the next and next. Profound, unspeakable cruelty who counters this, who does not see. And so to tenderness, I add my action. Thank you.
Good evening. Very grateful for the opportunity to be here, and thank you, Christine, for that lovely introduction, which was hard to live up to, but Aracelis and Daniel did. Let's see what happens now. Can you hear me? You can hear me? All right. When I read, I'll shout. A further shore. By the shadowless lion bluff of Pigeon Island, you have gone swimming. A clear afternoon. Children's faint play noises ring in the yard by the Hyphen Church School, near century-old cafes, one with a zinc fence signed in comic icons, ice cream and other supplies, skies your sides with laughter. But they vanish near the beach stretch, the piratical hotelier's paradise, a white army of luxury boats idled, processional, waiting for a flare to blow and ignite another plantation without Bible or chain, just the Prime Minister's handshake and bow. You ignore them for your first immersion. The blue water whitens and collects you in its salt mine. Ah, Vallejo. So this is the chessboard you wrote about, as by slate, an emerald patient army poised for your command, a voice without force to crack the terracotta quiet, steadily erect between two flailing lives, memory and this, the present, advancing only down, the body's tower rattled by what it carries, diabetes and your gift, the mighty unscathed mourn. We will not mourn at the bishop's speech that day, not when he crosses himself twice, an X. We will be like the breakers on the beach at Kasamba, mute with rage, serenely vexed that your life is not a chess game, played again in the shade with other shades, companions, literature, not language, has made aware of others' ignorance shifting in time. Station. The train station is a cemetery. Drunk with spirits, a man enters. I fan gnats from my eyes to see into his face. Father, I shout and stumble. He does not budge. After 13 years, neither snow nor train, only a few letters, and twice from a cell, his hoarfrost accent crossed the Atlantic. His mask slips a moment as in childhood, pure departure, a gesture of smoke. Along frighted crowds the city punished, picking faces in the thickness of morning's hard light that struck raw and stupid, searching. And in the dribble of night commuters, I have never found him, wandering the almond trees' shadows, since a virus disheartened the palm's blossoms, and mother gave me the sheaves in her purse, so he would remember her, and then shaved her head to a nut. I talk fast of her in one of my cerebrous voices, but he laughs, shaking the scales of froth on his coat. The station's coal cracks a hysterical congregation. His eyes flash little obelisks that chase the spirits out, and without them, wavering, I see nothing like me. Stranger, father, cackling rat. Who am I transfixed at the bottom of the station? Pure echo in the train's beam, arriving on its cold nerve of iron. After the hurricane walks a silence, deranged, white as the white helmets of government surveyors, looking into roofless shacks, assessing stunned fowls, noting inquiries into the logic of feathers, reversed like gullies still retching. They scribble facts about fallen cedars, spread out like dead generals on leaf medallions. They draw tables to show the shore as rearrange its idea of beauty for the resort villas, miraculously not rattled by the hurricanes, call it Cyclops, passage through the lives of children and pigs. The one eye that unhooked banjos from the hills, smashed them in Rio Valley. They record how it howled off to that dark parish, St. Thomas, stumping drunk with wire lashes and cramps, paralyzing electric poles and coconut trees, dishing discard among neighbors, exposed, standing among their flattened, scattered lives for the first time. It passed through Aunt May's head, upsetting the furniture, left her chattering something a cross between a fowl and a child. They can't say how it tore down her senses. No words, packing their instruments, flies returning to genuflect at their knees on Aunt May's face, gone soft. No words, except, no fret, driving off as if they'd left better promises to come. The serial killer line in Chaucer bloomed. The smiler with the knife under the cloak. In my head down Bolton Hill, a perfect epithet for this city Frederick Douglass's beard braced through a slight tourist crowd milling at the harbor below the bloodshot sign of the Domino Sugar Building, flashing ghettos beyond this point. There, whole blocks shushed by some medieval plague. There, traffic barked for miles into a blaring cortege. There, a current pulled me one morning after beating out the fretted equanimity nested on my tender crops, who winced and sang the tales. For I, Tristra Peaks man, ice-pick raconteur, who loved the sponde of the furnace, feared a knife sliced my throat, chipped over an imaginary moat, an anachronistic river sighed below the asphalt. I heard a man yell in his cell, "Get the fucking money, Pete." I lowered my head, wholly as daylight paled into a horse pluming towards me. I laughed. It halted, "Oh, my chevalier." I was trying not to read any island poems, but it's unavoidable. Fitzy and the Revolution. The rumor broke first in Duckenfield. Fitzy dropped the shutters of his rum shop. By the time it got to Dalvey, there were 3 suicides. The mechanic in Cheswick heard and gave his woman a fine thrashing. But to her credit, she nearly scratched his heart out his chest during the howl and leather smiting. The betting shops and the whorehouse daylights at Golden Grove were empty. It was brutal to see the women with their hands at their jaws on the terrace. Seeing them, you know the rumor was not rumor. The rumor was gospel. The cane cutters did not get their salary. Better to crucify Christ again, slaughter newborns, strike down the cattle. But to make a man not have money in his pocket on a payday Friday was abomination itself. Worse, cane cutters, who filed their spines against the sun, bringing down great walls of cane. You would shudder to see them, bareback men bent kissing the earth, so to slash away the roots of the canes. Every year the same men, different cane, and when different men, the same cane. The cane they cannot kill, living for this one day of respite, when they would straighten themselves to pillars and drop dollars on counters and act like daylights is a suite at the Ritz. And the devastating beauty queens with their galling, fragile attention gave them forever to live in a tickle. The wetted cane piece, this one day forgotten in a whore's laugh. Suddenly these men filled Hampton Court Square, demanding the foreman's head. They were thirsty for blood and for rum. Fitzy stayed hidden in his shop behind the shutters. He heard one man say it was not the foreman's head they should get. That would not be wise. The man continued, "It must be fire for fire. The factory must be burnt down." But the men murmured. They were afraid. Someone made a joke. They roared. And soon they were saying, "Fire can't buy rum." They were roaring money, then rum, pounding Fitzy's shutter, shouting his name for him to set them on fire. They grew hoarse against the shutters. The sun had taken all motion out of their voices. Fitzy could hear them through the zinc like dogs about to die. Cried out children, that dry rustle you hear after the crop is torched and the wind bristles the ashes. No men were out there, only a shivering noise. That was when Fitzy opened the shutters. Their red eyes in charcoal suits looked up at him, and with an overseer's scorn, he nodded them in. prelude to the afternoon of a fawn. Noon ictus cool in the veranda's fretwork. The child sits after his harp boning burlesque in the bower. His slit of gulls nerves silence into Idringia. Violet and roan, the bridal sun is opening and closing a window, filling a clay pot of coins with coins, candle jars, a crystal globe, cut milk boxes with horn petals snapping their iceberg Golgotha crackle. The loneliness is terrible, the ice is near, says the hasp-lipped devil casting beatitudes at the castor oil pimps in Parliament. Pray for them, joyfully, their amazing death. Light seeds bulging like pipes blown with napalm from his big golden eyes turned in the afternoon 10 degrees backwards. Then through palm fronds teething the bridled air, sprigs of goat hair fall. Tiger moth, hair smoke, silk tide, her mouth's not the chamber angel, the night chimera that comes to the boy on the alabaster throne, no longer child king of Sumer. His trigger blood hammers rust, strings of charm, shards of jewels, glint like sunset oil, streak shield held closely in the singing woods of bat-eaten fruits, silently hanging, blot seeds, cut sage and rosemary, a blight mercury, cured meat, silver streams dividing on the sea, the ultraviolet rays, weeds, plankton, seahorse, half-man, sunken masks, God's horn, perfume, ivory tusks, market dusks, vine pillars, Bataram sound, orange light caravan, wheels of water spinning industry, whipped backs, shock foil, the galvanized wax, congealed dreams of a burned ship. All were lost, all were drowned. Three more poems. One is going to be very long. Sibelius and Marley. History is dismantled music. Slant, bleak on gravel. One amasses silence. Another chastises silence with nettles, stinging ferns. I oscillate in their jaws. The whole gut listens. The air winces white nights in his talons, sinking mire. He wails and a comet impales the sky with the dual wink of a wasp burning. Music dismantles history. The flambeau in flame in his eyes with a locust plague, a rough gauze bolting up his mouth unfolds, so he lashes the air with ropes and roots that converge on a dreadful zero, a golden age. Somewhere, an old film, dusk solders on a cold, barren coast. There, I am a cenotaph of horns and stones. I'll read an old poem, even though I am young. The Mother Portrait. Naomi, my mother, you are sick. I am afraid as if I were in darkness and slit white eyes are mocking me. The Ela woman says you've been marked, that your enemy put a coolie duppy on you. So mornings when the basil rise in the nose, the duppy is outside. Naomi, why you? You never trouble people. You don't hang with Rummed district women on the plaza, cutting eyes, lapping skirts on people's business whole day. They call you things. I hear them. Lady of the night, ninny, bird. The dish towel names hang on fences to quail in the sun for all to see. What wrong you cause? What damage? Is it us, you're too precious that you boast of? Our father who ran away to the streets of England? We who wear shoes out of the once in a blue moon parcel to school and eat out of crockery and must not ramp with village picnic? Naomi, did I fertilize their envy and push their hands to Obia? To watch you turn fool, mad woman, running across yards, chased by a white hair, shrilled voice, coolly duppy. Naomi, I see you sick and hurting, and I can't help you. I'm afraid to look in your eyes or touch you, my own mother. It kills to watch your mouth corner froth and dry with the sickness, the strong smell of healer's potion in your skin, oil in your creases, in your ears and neck, and your wrists tied to the bed, vomit on your bosom, blood in your torn hair, fury in your grunts and screams. Naomi, my mother, you are sick, but you're not dead, not yet, though that horror is in your eyes, and I piss myself like a boy who's lost and hungry in the night swamp where morning will not light. Oh God, Naomi, I am too weak, and I'm watching you dying while my sister sleeps on the floor, her dreams troubled by the open vials. Father, hear me now. Take me, leave my mother for the other child. Okay, it won't be long. Singing school valediction. A scarlet breeze buoyed him next to us, his white feather hair a boy's, giddy and bright, for this, what he called the immaculate air. It never crossed my mind the wind could be fostered down to such a casual vision, a taper of crocus spied through a bubble level. Daily, I have climbed the mound to teach my seminars. Some days I dared look back, pushing the glass door at what was reflected in the glass. Vermilion shock of trees, a sky that swims blue and unbroken with clouds, merging with those brindled hills, some a wink of gold corona through power lines. Always I disappeared inside before an eagle fell from the sun, or whatever was subsequent to sun, and charged the kids, recite. I listened, distanced. But now, tuned to his big turnip face, fringed peat moss sprouts from his ears, blackbird blackbrows perked, flicker antennas pulling from the air, words that filled our small nervous compass hearts with the love harp light he twined between us. I became a thicket of ears, tensed to engrave by instinct the gradient shifts of his voice before he scaled the promontory, a kingfisher, hushed back into the chrysalis he sang to us from. Thank you.
So much. I think all of you will probably agree, but for me, there are certain readings that we hold here that remind me why I devoted my life to this art form. So you three have done that for me, revived that in me. There are books for sale in the back which you can buy and then bring up here, or if you can't afford to buy them, with all due respect, please just come up and speak with the poets. You do not need to purchase a book in order to have that communion and conversation. So thank you once again to these three poets.